Our 4 carers on the stage now. Yes, a couple of whom I mentioned before were in the video you saw. From left to right, Tim, Aditi, Andrew and Katerina. Please make them all welcome. This panel session's a bit more fluid. There's not a whole lot of structure in terms of I want you to know their stories and what they want to share about their caring experiences. Tim cared for his mother and now cares for his wife. You saw a bit of that in that video. Can you elaborate on those caring experiences for us, Tim?
Sure. I mean, I started off caring for my mother as she got older and went blind. And so there was all the managing her assistance. My father was still alive for part of that time, so he gave some assistance as well. But he equally was a old person. And at that stage, I was much younger. So it was an interesting role because we did end up having to put her into a care home. So she was getting some professional caring as well. But there were still the things of taking her to appointments and just making sure that her personal needs were being addressed appropriately. After she passed away, I was retired at that stage, and about 6 years ago, my wife unfortunately had a mental breakdown, and when she came home from that process after about 6 months, she needed some support and some assistance, and fortunately now she's relatively stable, but it's very much a situation where, you know, she needs support to do something. She's lost confidence in herself, and so, yeah, that's really my story at the moment.
That's your story where you are. Aditi, we saw in the video as well that you care for your son with his disability. Tell us about him, how he's going, and what some of the challenges are for you.
Hi. Yeah. Yes. Initially, I didn't realize my caring role because when children are born, especially mothers, they are the carers for any children. So I have 2 children. Abijoy is the elder one. He's 19 and he's a younger sister who doesn't have any issues. So over the years, for my daughter, I could leave certain things for her to do on her own, like going to school by herself, going to high school and this and that. But for Abijoy, I had to continue the caring role longer. And in between stages, I remember I used to be very overwhelmed. And we have been traveling in many parts of India. Originally, we are from there. And then my husband's work took us to the Middle East, Dubai, Qatar. So everywhere he was in school. But it was a big cultural shock for most of us. And for him, I think it was quite challenging. And what I had in my mind earlier was a picture-perfect family with 1 boy, 1 girl, husband, good place. So I had everything. And I thought possibly nothing can go wrong, but I wasn't prepared for anything. And naturally, I used to be extremely overwhelmed. And I was so worried and panicked. Even in the school hours, if a phone came, it can be from whoever, either my mother or some other organization, but I always like, not the school, not the school, not the school, because I didn't want to hear any complaints. And at the end of the school, if most of the time there were complaints, because in certain countries, they don't have an idea. They think it's a naughty child. Why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? The mother is responsible. Even the peer mother, they said, you are not training your child properly. That's not the way you raise children. And supposing it comes on your face, then we become more like digging our heels and like, what? People telling me I can't mother. And then I started believing them and I thought, what am I doing? And there were times when I used to also just slap him, beat him up. And then I told my mother the same thing. She over the phone said, don't touch the child. But I had to take out the frustration. So I just used to go sit in the bathroom and slap myself until I got out all my frustrations out. But gradually, when you're too frustrated, then you keep seeking, So I kept seeking out, like, what can I do, or what's the other way, a better way. And whenever we go out to seek something, we will get it. So these days I'm very balanced, and I've seen that the more I'm calm, it's that energy spreads in the family. And today he's doing really well. Touch wood, he's doing really well.
You're doing well. You're doing well. Andrew, now you have your own disability, a physical disability that we could see. You're a brave man wearing a kilt on stage as well.
Yes, that's right. Exactly.
But you also care for your son.
I do.
Tell us about that.
Thank you very much. My son, he's not a child anymore. He's a 32-year-old bloke, and he's a big boy. And our journey with Kyle has been different. He was diagnosed when he was 4 years old with GDD, global developmental delay. So we're going back a long time before a lot of these services that we have now are in place. A lot of what my wife and I went through was seeking services, finding out different places to go, who was doing what, where, and then sort of just hooking on to their coattails. So there wasn't a whole bunch of support back then, and not like it is now. And I'm not saying now is perfect, but it's better than it was 30 years ago. So we are getting better in this. 8 years ago, I acquired my own disability, having to have, after fighting off an infection for years and years and years, made the decision to have my leg amputated. So that caring role that I had with my son, he doesn't live with us anymore. It cost me $300,000 to get rid of him, to buy him a house. So it was on his 20th birthday, actually. And I said to his mother, it was very tongue in cheek, but there's truth behind this as well. It was very tongue in cheek. Either he goes or I go. And it was that point and it's not because I don't love him dearly. I would walk over broken glass. I would die for my son. But you get to that point where you go, you know what? 20 years old. It's time for him to move on and become that adult that we all hope and pray and wish that they would become. Does that mean it's been easy? No, because we've had to put support workers in place. We've had to put a lot of safeguards around him. Kay and I went away for the first time on our own in about 5 years ago, and we'd never been away without him. And it was like we sat there, we were sitting in the bush, we free camped all the way across Australia. And we're sitting there and we're going, after she got to the point of being able to let it go, like, yes, he's a big boy. If he burns the house down, it's insured. That's all good. We can fix stuff, But we needed to get to that point where we go, we have to have a life in this as well. So I acquired my disability, and now that caring role has sort of switched over a little bit because he does things for me that I can't do anymore, which is fantastic. And that's just a testament to the way that we and the other people who've been involved in his life have trained him and worked with him to build that capacity and that independence, that now he will, instead of me having to mow the lawn, I will come home and the lawn's been mowed. Stuff like that. So I suppose in a nutshell, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes, and not all the time, it's not the train coming to hit you. So thank you. Yeah.
Good on you. Thanks, Andrew. And Katerina, I'm so glad you're on this panel because we were just talking with Chrissy really about young carers who there might be a stereotype that you're caring for a sibling. Tell us your story from what sort of age you were caring for your mother.
My caring role's been since I was quite young, 5. When I was 3, my dad passed away, and then a year later, my mum and I were involved in a car accident that when a truck hit us. And then as I got older, I guess things got harder for my mum and I. My mum was also caring for me at the time because I have a disability. I wear AFOs. I have bilateral talipes. And I've had over 30 surgeries in and out of hospital.
Can I ask, was that from the accident?
No, I was born with bilateral talipes, club feet.
Right.
And usually you have one operation and you're fine. But for me, I've had to have multiple.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So then about the caring for your mother, tell us more about that.
So because my mum had the truck hit her, she sustained like multiple injuries, which had been like lifelong. And it's, I guess she's slowly not been able to like walk as much, and she couldn't like look after us, which made her, I guess, get really bad depression. So that's also another thing that I've been looking after her with is her mental illness and stuff. I've been lucky enough to be with Walmsley, which is I'm in the children of a parent with a mental illness, which has been really good for me, I think. And now I'm a peer support worker and helping kids with parents with mental illnesses, which is really crazy.
Have you got siblings as well? Have you has it been a bit of a shared caring role or not?
I guess. Oh.
One experience to the other.
So for me, I have 4 siblings, 3 brothers and 1 older sister. My oldest brother has Down syndrome, and then so my oldest brother that doesn't have Down syndrome, he helped look after my mum, and so did my sister for a while. But I think as I got older, I took on all the caring role because like everyone moved out, and I'm me. I think a lot of young carers, they gain a lot of empathy and they don't know how to like let go and look after themselves. So I kind of just stayed. Not that I regret it. I love living with my mum and helping her with everything. But yeah.
And now you're 25 now, is that right?
I am.
So how do you feel now about this sort of transition from what is technically called a young carer up until the age of 25? I mean, I'm sure there's not some line where you go, I'm not a young carer anymore. Tell us, practically, does that change anything?
Well, I didn't know I was a young carer until I was 22, so 3 years ago when COVID hit, and I just found out about it. I knew I looked after my mum, but I didn't really see it as being a carer because my mum cares for me as well. She takes me to appointments because I can't drive at the moment because I have to get a modified car, and NDIS is anyway. So yeah, it's not too different for me, but changing from being a young carer to going into being I guess a normal carer, it's a bit strange.
I'm sure not a lot changes, to be honest. I mean, you're still caring, you're still fulfilling that role. And look, one of the things we've learned over the past I suppose, over the past couple of days, is that common theme of people not even realising they were a carer. You all just do what you do, don't you?
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yeah.
Because if it's a parent or whatever, you just sort of feel like you're just doing that role you're supposed to do. But you are a carer and you do need some support.
It's funny you actually say that. Kyle has a twin sister. And she lives in Brisbane. She's ex-military. She's actually worked for the NDIA, believe it or not. Got out of there real quick. But she being a twin and then growing up with a brother with an intellectual disability, it's been very interesting for her because she actually never saw herself as a young carer either. But now, she's an adult as well. We've sat down last year. My mother passed away at the end of last year, and so we did a whole review of our life basically, and said, okay, what do we have to do? So it was literally because we have a few properties, and we have to safeguard our son. We had to sit down and do this living will, and it was really interesting when sitting down with our daughter, explaining to her that role. Is she going to take that on when me and her mother have passed away? And being really open in that conversation as well. Because it's not her responsibility, but she's exactly like you, has sort of stepped up and gone, you know what, that's what I want to do. And that we can't buy that. Seriously, we cannot pay for that.
Yeah, yeah, well said. While we're on the subject of young carers, I want to ask Josh a question. You're not on the panel. We've got a microphone coming down. I just might have pre-planned that. Just because you're not on the panel, but you're in the video and you seem like such a great kid, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to just share quickly your story as well about caring for your sister.
Okay, my caring role when I was... It's working?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, okay, my caring role started at the age of... Oh.
Oh, I mean, you don't have to embarrass him too much.
So you want
Sitting.
I've got a seat for you. Stand over there.
Okay, yes, I get the corner.
This is Josh.
Yes, hello. My caring role started at the age of 6 when my sister was born. Her name's Charlotte. She was born with an undiagnosed disability, however was born with a diaphragmatic hernia, has cerebral palsy, and many other issues in her body. Some of the caring roles I fulfill is mobility, getting her in and out of the car, bathing, dressing, many other things. I do a nightly feed, which runs 24/7 into her stomach. I give her 8 medications or more a night, and basically just help her with everyday needs. That Anything else?
No, yeah, no, I was just going to say, for you, though, when you say it like that, I mean, you don't know any other way, do you?
Well, no, because I was 6 and I have an absolutely shocking memory. I can't remember anything different. So
And how old are you now?
14.
14, yeah.
14.
14, yes.
Excuse me, I better leave.
He's only 14.
If you become the future, I work in the disability sector. I've worked in the industry for 25 years. I'm the president of Physical Disability Australia. I work for the peak advocacy body of amputees in Australia. If you guys are our future, mate, we're in good hands.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Well done. You can go back now.
Oh, cool.
Take the microphone with you if you like.
Yes.
I'll grab it off you. Well done. I thought it was worth throwing that in there as well.
Quite
This is the this is the diversity of carers. It
Yeah.
fits in with this theme, and as you say, I agree. You know, the future is in pretty good hands.
Mate, absolutely.
I mean, it's something I sort of want to take away from these couple of days as well, Andrew, is that, you know, everyone's got so many issues you're all dealing with and questions you want answered and help that you want. And some of you don't get the answers you want. Some of it is not being solved yet, but I just hope there is that positive light as well. That I can't remember who said it now because we've heard from so many people about how things. I think you said it, didn't you? About things were so bad back in the 1950s or the whatever.
Not that old, mate.
No, even I wasn't born then. But we have got better, even if we've got a long way to go.
Absolutely, 100%. I think it was one of the ladies over there was saying, you know, like the 1950s, the 1980s, 1990s want their values back. And please welcome to the 20th century. We're in the 21st century now. You know, we have come such a long way, but we have got so far to go. You know, but if these two are the future, mate.
Yeah,
I'd be quite happy to hang my hat up right now. Seriously,
it's why it's good to celebrate young carers. Although Tim, not calling you not young, but you're nodding away there as well. Is there anything else you just want to say while you are part of this panel, though, about anything that you need to see change or help?
Well, I think it was probably made quite clear by the previous panel, you know, that the legislation, whilst it's come a long way since the 50s or whatever, it probably is still not, it's definitely not in the 21st century. I think it's even struggling to be in the 20th century, quite honestly, despite what Andrew wants to say.
like kicking and screaming, mate.
Yeah, well, that's true, buddy. And I mean, I think that what we need is people out there advocating for legislative change.
Yeah.
And seeing people coming up in the ranks, like Josh and who are down there, Katrina. Yes, you know, it's encouraging that there will be people out there pushing when people like Andrew and I are long gone. And even Mark will have been past that age too.
Probably go before all of you.
But yeah, no, so I think the really important thing is that we need the various organisations, and we had ladies here earlier on from different organisations. We've got Andrew, who's very active in a couple of the disability organisations and whatever. We just need everybody to band together, get out of those silos that Teresa was talking about earlier on, and just work together for the common good of the carers and the people for whom they care.
100%.
Because you know what else? We can't rely on the politicians. We can't. I mean, it's as simple as that. We'd all like to, but we can't rely on them to do everything that needs to be done, unfortunately. And as we just discussed up the back, didn't we, that where are they today? They need to be here hearing all these stories, don't they? Because it would really make a big difference to what they do in terms of legislating in some of these areas.
100%.
Yes, let's get a microphone down there. Coming to your left.
Hi, I think the other area that is not working together is the NDIS providers, the plan managers and support coordination agencies. They compete for the business of the clients, and I think if they worked together more rather than competing, then as a united voice, they could also fight the NDIS with a lot more power behind them.
Yeah. Andrew?
I'd agree, 100%. I think that the way that the whole thing with the NDIA is structured needs to have a revamp. And this whole thing around support coordination and plan managers and all this other stuff, I'm all for people running businesses. You know, my son Kyle has his own micro enterprise. You know, very, very successful as a barista making coffee. I'm all for that, but they also have to. We as participants also have to push back on that to them to say, okay, if that person's going to do that for me, what are you going to do for me here? In my world as an amputee, we've got 3 providers in Western Australia that I can go to. That's it. So these are one-off. I can't go to Bunnings and buy one of these. You know, this is something that I need to have trust in the person that I'm working with to make the best prosthetic for me so I can get up and do what I need to do. So I think we, as participants in NDIS, and also and obviously a lot of the older folks with disabilities are not part of that, they need to push back on it. We need to push back onto these providers to get that service that we deserve. 100%. Should they work together? Yes. Are they going to? Probably not.
There is a great support.
Yep.
As long as the smaller agencies.
Absolutely. And I tell my prosthetists every single time I see him. I said, if it wasn't for me as an amputee, you wouldn't have a job. And it's nobody in the NDIA would not exist if it wasn't for us. The government doesn't, as much as we bag the government, they don't sit around going, oh, let's find a scheme that we can spend $52 billion on. No. If it wasn't for people with disabilities, that would not exist. All those people have jobs because we are there. We own that scheme and we have to take it back.
It's a great perspective on that. Question at the front.
Not really a question, more of a comment. I'm not an NDIS participant, nor am I a carer, but I was a support coordinator not too long ago and can confirm it is all about billable hours. And it was the reason why I ended up leaving that job, as it didn't sit right with me.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty.
Anyone else got a question for one of our panel members? Otherwise, Andrew's going to be forced to get his musical instrument out.
Can I
Yes.
pick up on something?
Yes.
And firstly, his musical instrument is not a bagpipe. But this issue about the service providers working together, you know, as Andrew sort of alluded to in his response, you know, there are all businesses out there that have to make money to keep operating. And so they're going to be competing because there's X dollars in the NDIS kitty, and I don't want Andrew to get it all because I want some for my business, okay? So I don't think we're ever going to get, as you sort of predicted, to the situation of let's all play happy families, because it's not going to happen.
It's not, I'm not looking for the enmeshment, but just
Yeah, but that's all right. Well, then just that much. It's just not going to happen because they all have their own competing services to offer to the clients, and it's just, it would be ideal if they would, but
And you probably mean if it is the same or similar service, don't you? When
Yeah.
they could get together a bit more, not when it's a competing different service, I suppose.
similar
But,
services.
where's the mic? Just there. Yep.
Hi, my question is more about how you discuss your journeys amongst your peers, particularly Tim, caring for parents and your wife, and sorry, I forgot her name, Katerina, amongst your peers as well. Is your carer journey, and thank you for sharing your journey with us, but do you discuss it amongst your peers, and what reactions have you gotten, and how have you dealt with that?
Ladies first.
Well, growing up, it was kind of difficult to explain to like friends and stuff why I couldn't do a certain thing, like go out that night or whatever, and they'll go, "Oh, just don't worry about it, just do it." And I can't. Like I probably could, but like I didn't want to, and people just, I guess they kind of like said I was a pushover or whatever, and I just, it was really hard to like explain that to people that I wanted to do it. I wasn't forced to do it because I could have been like my siblings and just left, but
Thanks for your question. When I was caring for my mother, it was a much easier conversation because most of my peers had elderly parents who, whether they recognised that they were caring for them in some way or not, they were. So that wasn't such a challenge, but caring for my wife, where my peers don't necessarily have partners with that need some care, and it does restrict our activities. We can't, as Katerina said, you can't always go out to different gatherings and things because she's not well and she needs some support or whatever. So, and talking about it, I guess because it's not a physical disability, it's something that's harder to talk about. I mean, if she was going around with, her prosthetic leg, it would be a much easier conversation because they would know that she had some situation going on. I mean, some of my friends, know, and, it's easy to talk to, but others, no.
It's a really interesting question, I reckon, because of the different ages and stages and the different reactions. And some people, when you're younger, you're probably more likely to was almost bullied about that sort of thing, or, people. And then as you get older, it's also really easy to then just isolate you even further. You're caring for your wife, isn't it? Do you feel that there's the potential for that isolation to increase?
No, not really, I don't think, because it's just, she's not feeling well tonight, we're not going sort of thing. It's,
As long as the friends are still around.
Yeah.
I just remember noticing it with my grandparents. It wasn't that long ago they were alive, and my grandfather caring for my grandmother with dementia, and just that isolation that just increased because they were just then that consumed his life, and everyone else is sort of cut off. You're not allowed to ask a question.
I'm not asking a question. It's more an answer to the question that was asked.
Oh, perfect. Go ahead.
So, seeing as this has been my normal since the age of 6 and I don't know anything different, when I try and make this discussion with friends, I kind of express it as normal, express it as if there is nothing different. For instance, I don't bring it up as this big, heavy detail and big part of my life. I just bring it up as this lighthearted comment. So I would probably bring it up in a way like, my sister Charlotte, who has a disability, and then I keep on going with what I'm saying.
Yes.
And then I kind of slowly integrate it into their life, not with one long conversation, but rather little spurts of information that can lead into your life.
God, he's exceptional, isn't he? That's so beyond your years. That sort of normalizing of things. I love it.
That is,
Isn't that incredible?
yeah, Claire, we were talking about Josh before, so trust me, yeah. But that's exactly right. It's exactly what I was just going to say, is it's that those little snippets of conversation become the normal. For me, being 45 years old and acquiring a disability, and then the way that people treat you differently. If I'm having to use my wheelchair because I'm feeling tired or I can't put my leg on, nothing's changed here. It's all this, but people's perceptions change. So kudos to you guys for, that's a trail that I wish we could have been blazed 30 years ago, for those invisible disabilities, for people who don't have a voice, for people who are, isolated, vulnerable, all that sort of stuff. I would love to have you guys come and join some of our boards and some of our, because you speak wisdom way beyond your years, and that's, and Claire and I have worked together a lot. We need to step out of the way sometimes and let these guys through.
And let us know when you're running for Prime Minister, all right?
I'd vote for it.
I just want to make a comment to everybody here. NDIS actually sets the charter of fees. So they are allowed to charge what's on the charter of fees. However, having said that, you as an NDIS participant have the right to negotiate your own fee. The same is applicable to My Aged Care. All service providers will tell you this is the fee. For example, transport is charged at $193.99. Regardless of where they're travelling from, they're coming to your home under NDIS. However, with the organisation that you choose, you have the option to say to the person who's looking after you, whether it's a support coordinator or it's a plan manager, oh no, I can't afford to pay that. I've only got X amount of dollars in my plan. If you want to provide the service and this is how you get a good service, you can then say, well, I'll pay up to X, Y, and Z. And having a plan manager, you can actually get example of, if you want a lawnmower man, go and find a local one who's a lot cheaper. If you want a cleaner, do exactly the same. It works the same in NDIS as it does in My Aged Care. But when you have a plan manager in NDIS, that means you can negotiate what you want and you send the bill to a plan manager and you get their cost included in your package. You can do the same with My Aged Care because I'm doing both. And you can do exactly the same as My Aged Care. Go and get your own whatever and then send the bill through. Get them to bill directly.
Hand
It's
that.
not self-managing.
Just hand the mic back so we can get it over. They've only got the one, and then we go. Did you want? Just hang on, because we've got people watching and listening online, and they can't hear you. So sprinting across the room. Sorry, I should have just given this one probably.
I want to say exactly. Also, I'm a plan manager, but the thing is, thank you. The thing is, many competing with the business, that's fine, but not ripping off the participant budget. I'm exactly against it. And I can see when things going wrong with the other providers. They don't care about the participant budget, about their hours, anything. They just get most of the budget, and there is how do you say, relationship between the provider and some coordinator to get the budget and play with it and get the participant at the end nothing. That's the thing. And thank you. NDIS, they don't listen. They don't want to listen. There's no conference, nothing. Yeah.
You get the mic over here as well when you're done. You're getting your steps up today.
You're going to sleep.
Okay.
Is it on?
Yep.
Is it on? Yes.
Yep.
We are a service provider. We created our company 2 years ago. due to Monique will talk about story another time. She's a speaker later this afternoon about how difficult it was to navigate the NDIS as a carer. We started a company to help parents. So we worked for 2 years for free. We drown in debt with personal money. We try to go to town and council to get some grants to help us to do free workshops, free conference, and we've been unsuccessful. As an example, we're running a free conference in Mandra to help parents with the inclusion of the children in education and to navigate the NDS for free. But we drown in debt. As an example, my partner, my husband, is so understanding, but I can understand why companies have to charge some monies because ideally the government will give money to companies like us, but they don't. So I know there is a middle.
There's nothing available.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll just jump in. I was just saying there's nothing available in the education and training space. And unfortunately, we work in the pediatric sector. Unfortunately, there's only one plan partner. And those people they're at capacity a lot of the times. And so there's a systemic issue. And the problem is that education and information should be free and it should be readily accessible, but it isn't. And unfortunately, when you're a company that has a moral compass, you have to drown in debt in order to provide your participants with the support that they need. And we've continued to do that and we will continue to do that, but we are definitely not the majority and it's devastating. It is.
Yeah, wow. Fair enough. Thanks for that. We have time for one more question. Feel free to, after this question, we're going to chat. You can chat out. We're going to have the lunch break. Go ahead.
To any of the panel, how have you adapted with changing needs over the years? Son with a disability, 35, at the moment, very challenging, different to a few years ago. So how do you deal with those changes?
Go.
Yes, the best thing is to be prepared. That's what I've seen. If you're totally unprepared, then you'll be constantly overwhelmed with life, whether you have issues with disability or not. So the best thing is if we can anticipate the future, have a clear picture what we want, think about our capabilities, how long can we support, when does the person needs to be put in a group house. So all these we need to have very much clarity, and the more prepared we are, it's better. I was always thrown off track, but over the years I've learned that if I can plan a future, it might not go straight exactly. If I plan A and then it will just happen. You may have various plans like plan A. If that doesn't happen, plan B, plan Z, something like that. But do have a plan, realistic plan that if you have a child of 35 years, then you have to understand when to let go. Sometimes we are not capable enough to do it, but we also feel the pull of the string, we can't let go. So we should also have the capability to think how much I can perform and when or how I can let go slowly. We need to be prepared.
Andrew.
And I just want to add one thing to that. A really valuable part of growing up is peer support. It's finding someone in that same space who's gone through it for you as a carer and also for your son. Our son hangs out with a lot of young folk with intellectual disabilities. And we, as his parents, have learned that they become their sounding boards. They become their normal in that space. And then together, collectively, they're strong. So they can go out into community and they can be who they are. They can grow in their roles as community members, which is what we all want. So it's try and find some of that peer support. There is reams and reams of research around that. Claire mentioned before about the disaster risk reduction. I was with her in Brisbane, and one thing that I took away, many things, but the one thing is talk to us. Sit down and talk to us and find out what it is you need. Have a plan, 100%, but you've got to make sure that plan is what is going to work for that young person. We don't put our ideals and stuff on it. you got to make sure that it works for them.
Just have it in the lunch break too. Have a chat with one of the team from Carers WA for a bit more help and support as well. Because we do have to break for lunch. We could chat to these people all day, I know. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. Everyone is blowing me away, but Tim, Aditi, Andrew, Katerina, and Josh.
And Josh.
Josh and Katerina, you don't even know it, but you are particularly awesome. So thank you so much for what you've shared with us today.
Good job.